Hakeem Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all.
Crude oil production challenges and PMS subsidy deductions by the NMPC constitute a significant threat.
Federal government says failing oil revenues is stalling the full implementation of 2022 budget.
I thank you for giving us a listening ear.
And House commends ASU for calling off strike. You are welcome to another fresh package of the program House Tickets, your window into the activities of our elected representatives as they go about the business of lawmaking from plenary to committee rooms and onto the constituency front. Glad to have you join us. Following the suspension of the strike by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, the Speaker of the House convened another meeting between the union and the Office of the Accountant General to discuss matters arising. In another scene, the House leadership led by the Speaker also met with stakeholders in the aviation sector to iron out issues working against the smooth running of the sector. Reports of these meetings form part of this week's episode of House Tickets. Still on the program, House committees have started the 2023 budget defense exercise in earnest. Details of meetings with ministers of finance and that of water are contained in this episode of the program. We begin fully with details in a moment. Please stay tuned.
The entire purpose of the legislative agenda is to direct our legislative resources and efforts in a coordinated effort to ensure the well-being of the individual in a life of safety and freedom. That is a high ambition, but it's well worth the effort. We have passed landmark legislation to fix our oil and gas industry, reform the police, and reorganize the corporate administration system in our country. We have considered and passed meaningful legislation that impacts all areas of our national life.
We will begin with reports from the Speaker's office, where the House leadership met with leaders of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, and the Accountant General of the Federation on Monday, 24th October 2022, to follow up on the agreement reached with ASU before the strike was called off. Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila opened the meeting by addressing the area of conflict, which is on the payment platform.
On that issue, we did agree that we would marry both, and whilst IPPIS would remain the platform, that the government would bring in the aspects and the areas that are specific on the UTAS and specific to the universities and assimilate those areas into IPPIS. I believe that was what was agreed by both sides when we had last two meetings. So we want to make sure that that box is ticked and it's not just an agreement of paper, or that we set it for the purposes of moving towards the cancellation of the strike.
The Speaker commended ASU for calling off the strike in the spirit of patriotism and commitments to national development.
I thank you for giving us a listening ear. I thank you for the compromises that you made. We are here as an institution to make sure that whatever we had agreed is implemented as best as possible.
Also speaking at the meeting, the Accountant General of the Federation, Mr. Silva Okoliabo, restated the commitment of the Accountant General's office to accommodate all the legitimate peculiarities of ASU and the university community on the IPPIS platform.
We sit down together, we look at all the issues that you have, all the peculiarities, we list them. As we are addressing them, we are taking them. Okay? I'm not going to ask you to accept until you are sure that we have addressed your issues.
On his part, ASU President Professor Emmanuel Oshedeke re-emphasized the union's position on the payment platform.
What we agree on the issue of UTAS and IPs is a temporary measure. Because for a country like Nigeria, if we are really patriotic and we love this country, I believe what we do is, if there is a problem in payment of salary, to me, when you categorize crisis in Nigeria, that is inconsequential. If there is a problem in payment, you challenge your university to develop a program for you as you were challenged. So this idea of others will bring their own, it's not true. We were challenged to produce it.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, however, responded to some of the issues raised by the ASU president, especially in relation to the payment platform.
If you say that you had issues in the past on the issue of IPPIS, yes, you may have had issues. It is those issues that we're trying to address. In the past, UTAS was not brought into IPPIS. I think that was the problem. It was IPPIS or nothing. So what happened in the past is what we're seeking to address by bringing in UTAS into IPPIS. So that what happened in the past will not what happened again. Well, this is the first time I'm hearing the word temporary or interim. That was never used. We have records of our proceedings. That was not the agreement. The agreement was not that it was a stopgap temporary measure. The agreement was that to address the issue, UTAS will be brought into IPPIS and so that we can move on.
A 3-month timeline was therefore agreed upon as the timeline within which the Office of the Accountant General will accommodate the university's peculiarities into the IPPIS payment platform. In bringing the meeting to a close, the Speaker urged ASU leadership and the Accountant General to keep his office informed of developments within the 3 months. Still from the Speaker's office, the leadership of the House met with the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, the Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, and stakeholders in the aviation sector over the controversial trapped funds belonging to foreign airlines. Details of this report is compiled and presented from our studio. Please stay tuned.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, said the purpose of the meeting was to resolve the issue of airlines not being able to repatriate their funds out of the country, a situation which is affecting their business. The Speaker noted that Nigerians are being made to pay exorbitant prices in foreign currencies as some airlines have stopped selling tickets to Nigerians.
Also know that Nigeria is a sovereign entity, and Nigeria cannot be singled out when other countries find themselves in an unfortunate situation. We want to be treated same as everybody else.
Going forward,
The area manager, West and Central Africa of International Air Transport Association, Mr. Samson Fatokun, responded to issues raised by the Speaker.
Our plea and our prayer is that this meeting should be able to help us identify some solutions to purge the backlog and have a mechanism in place to solve going forward so that we don't come back to this same situation we are.
It's a global.
The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, while speaking at the meeting, said that what is happening is a global challenge.
Said that the global outlook today is darkening due to deepening global slowdown. We were at the IMF meetings up to last week before we came back for the retreat. And some of the issues that were being deliberated by all the ministers and the governors of central banks from over 181 countries in the world is about the deepening global slowdown and the challenges that are confronting different economies. We've always thought that we could all work together as a global community, respecting the concept of globalization. But I dare say that today we are increasingly getting into the era of deglobalization, where countries are unfortunately thinking only about themselves.
He assured that all airlines will be paid no matter the delay.
Nobody has lost its money in Nigeria. Will there be a delay? There will be delay for obvious reasons that I have highlighted. There will be delay, but we will pay you. If there is fire in this room and all of us want to rush to the door at the same time, we will all almost die here. But there must be an orderly exit, which is what I've always been preaching. But that does not mean that you will not get your money, and on the basis of that, you begin to say that either you are cancelling visa for Nigerians or that you will not fly again because your funds are blocked.
The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, had the opportunity to sum up the deliberations. He said Nigeria under President Muhammadu Buhari has shown the capacity and audacity to stand up in difficult moments to do the right thing on behalf of the country.
In 2016, when we came in, there were $480 million US blocked, if the word is correct, in Nigeria. And in that year, we were in recession. And the oil revenues have dwindled. They've fallen from above 100 to less than 30. And we just heard from the central bank governor, you either earn it or you borrow it. At that moment, we hadn't even started borrowing. So we went to Mr. President and informed him of the difficulty that we are in. And he asked the central bank governor and the Minister for Finance to resolve the issue and immediately, which was done. So we have demonstrated as a country to be able to respond, even in difficult moments, to things that are obligations upon us.
He added that the federal government has been doing its best to resolve the issues the meeting was called for.
We've been doing our best to ensure that we have taken this on board and we have resolved the issues. We never said that at any point the CBN or the government of Nigeria is not providing money to repatriate. Whether Nigeria is a market, indeed is the only market for most of the airlines. Whether Nigeria is a good market, indeed Nigeria is the only market for most of the airlines. And they've been enjoying this market from amalgamation 1914 till date. I expect that if Nigeria is in a difficult moment, difficult situation, there will be some level of understanding from the other side.
Chairman of the House Committee on Aviation, Representative Naji, spoke on the issues discussed.
What we are talking about is a solution. And the CBN governor said something. What we need is to encourage our local airlines. That is basically what we need. As the chairman of the aviation committee, I have seen so many things. We cannot get it right if we don't encourage our local airlines.
You are watching House Tickets. Earlier on the program, we brought you reports from the Speaker's office, where stakeholders' engagement held on some matters of public importance. We will now move to the committee rooms to bring you reports of other events that took place in the House in the last 1 week, starting with the House Committee on Finance. Keep watching.
The full implementation of the 2022
The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, on Wednesday, the 26th of October 2022, appeared before the House Committee on Finance to give an overview of the performance and implementation of the 2022 budget. Making her presentation before the committee, the minister said the full implementation of the 2022 budget is challenged by failing oil revenues, which according to her stands at 27.1% as at August.
crude oil production challenges and PMS subsidy deductions by the NNPC constitute a significant threat to the achievement of our revenue growth targets as seen in the oil and gas performance for 2022 as at August. Revenue generation remains the major fiscal constraint of the Federation. The systemic resource mobilization problem has been compounded by recent economic recessions. We have witnessed one during the first term of this administration at 2016 and the most recent one in 2020.
She shed light on some of the efforts of the government to address the challenge.
But efforts have been mainly focused on improving tax administration and collection, and I must thank the finance committees of the Senate and the House for really helping us in this regard by closely monitoring the performance of the revenue collecting agencies.
And you find agencies spending...
The chairman of the committee, Representative James Faleke, during the session, asked the minister to speak on the efforts of the federal government to arrest growing inflation in the country.
Inflation, which affects all Nigerians. Currently stands at 23% according to your figure. So what's the plan of government? What are we doing to redeem the present situation we find ourselves?
On the matter of inflation, a very, very serious situation where Nigeria's inflation is now 23%. The inflation in Nigeria has a number of components. One of them is imported inflation, and what I mean by that is all currencies in other countries of the world, especially the developed countries, also affects Nigeria. For example, the war in Ukraine and Russia has an impact on Nigeria in the sense that some of the inputs for food production are affected. Also, the decisions of central banks in the US and Europe, the decisions that they take on tightening, monetary tightening, has also an impact on their own levels of inflation that also affects our countries because we also import goods from those countries. But in Nigeria, we also have inflation, and one of the buckets of inflation is food inflation. And because of the high cost of energy, diesel in our case, we find this showing up in food prices. So food prices are going up because energy, or let me be more specific, diesel prices are high. So when farmers produce their goods and they have to transport the goods to the market, their goods, the prices, the NBS data shows that food prices at farm gates have actually declined, but the cost of transportation is continuously increasing and impacting the cost of food and unfortunately affecting our people. What we are doing from the monetary side, what the central bank is doing is continuing to manage inflation by monetary tightening, by mopping up liquidity. That's why the MPR keeps being adjusted. On the side of the government, the president has authorized the National Food Security Council, and we have held a meeting even yesterday evening on how some support will be provided.
Honorable Minister.
Members of the committee took turns to ask the minister questions on salient issues.
On the revenue aspects, that's revenue performance. I need more explanation on the custom collections.
The Nigerian Customs, what we are reporting is that their performance is actually 83%, so we're just saying is 102%, which is 17% below the prorated target for the period. So maybe we should have just reported the actual and then the shortfall. So I guess that method that we took has caused some confusion. And then also the total collections of NCS is a federation collection. So the component that is due for the federal government is what we're reporting on here.
What is the challenge in deploying a kind of self-treasury single account with the collection of these revenues?
The TSA has both revenue and expenditure accounts.
Still from the committee room, the House Committee on Water Resources had before it the Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, to discuss the budget. Chairman of the committee, Representative Sada Soli, in opening the meeting, spoke on the 2023 budget.
You will jubilate, but at the end you will lock up yourself in a room and cry because this budget to the ministry is quite meager, is very small, considering the level of infrastructure loaded under the ministry. The ministry is purely infrastructure ministry.
The Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, while making his presentation, gave highlights of the 2022 budget as well as the proposal for the 2023 budget.
We have received the sum of 67.9 billion naira, or 41.52% of the 2022 capital appropriation, as detailed in Annex 1 of my submission. It should also be noted that under the main ministry, the sum of 41 billion and 1.23 billion were for multilateral and bilateral project-tied loans respectively, drawdowns for trimming the transform irrigation management in Nigeria, and the project for integrated development for adaptation to climate change, PIDAC. PIDAC is a project, of course, that has been anchored under the Niger Basin Authority. So the main ministry was left with only 32.976 billion naira for its capital projects and programs. So far, the ministry has received 23.7 billion, or 72% of the appropriated figure, and we have utilized the sum of 20.445 billion. The balance of the funds not utilized are mainly for payment of contractors and other projects and programs due for execution before the end of the year.
The minister spoke on how his ministry came up with its 2023 budget proposal.
Distinguished members were again fully guided by strategic objectives of the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025 in preparing our proposals, as well as government's policy thrust as articulated in the Nigeria Economic Sustainability Plan. We also tried as much as practicable to abide by the provisions of the 2023 Budget Call Circular in developing our proposal.
The minister used the occasion to appreciate the committee for its support to the ministry over the years.
The committee being fully aware of our mandate as a ministry, supported us in all respects and has oversighted the sector without any hitch. Permit me to specifically mention here that the ministry appreciates your continued and unflinching support over the years toward the ministry's contributions to irrigated agriculture in support of national food security, as well as the federal government's drive of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, and our efforts at construction of dams, or rather completion, if I may say, of dams with very water impoundment capacities to mitigate drought, hydropower generation, tourism, and sustenance of the environment. Also in our efforts towards supporting government to create employment for unemployed youths.
There was an interactive session between the committee members and the minister.
10,000 different water schemes for this country will still not be enough because the population is huge. So we still need more water schemes. But on that note, I want to thank you for almost bringing the Mango Dam in Plateau State to completion.
So I want the minister to explain how far you have gone, or the ministry, on the issue of the silting of Goronyo Dam.
The issue is general. So it's what is affecting Goronyo probably started in Katsina. That is the point I'm making. I would like to say that as far as I'm concerned, we have spent zero on desilting. I do not believe desilting in the way and manner we are talking about is the solution.
Many thanks for sharing your half hour with us on House Tickets. Keep watching for more updates as committees in this period work with ministries, departments and agencies to fine-tune the 2023 budget. Until I come your way again, do enjoy the rest of your day.